We've all encountered situations at work that make us feel unwelcomed, excluded, or dismissed. At times, these situations arise from words or actions concerning our identity that come across as hostile or offensive. These kinds of behaviors, actions, statements, and the physical work environment itself can target some or many aspects of our identity, such as our age, disability, race, gender, sexual orientation, among others. As defined by Daryl Wing-Soo, microaggressions are commonplace verbal, behavioral, and environmental slights or insults that are hostile, derogatory, or negative and target a person or marginalized group. People of color, women, and people with disabilities are some examples of groups that are marginalized, but we know that employees from various backgrounds and identities can experience microaggressions. Microaggressions, as we know, can be intentional or unintentional. Irrespective of the intention or how we interpret them, microaggressions can lead to feelings of isolation or exclusion, significantly affecting our sense of belonging. Let me share an example. Picture yourself dedicating days to prepare for a crucial work presentation. On the presentation day, you arrive at work feeling confident and professional. The moment is yours to shine. Unexpectedly, a coworker interrupts, diverting the conversation to comment on your hair as they reach out their hand to feel the texture. "I like your hair. Can I touch it? Is it real?" You may be wondering how a seemingly harmless question about hair, a question wrapped in a compliment, can communicate a hostile, derogatory, or negative slight. Well, I encourage you to think carefully about the possible messages your coworker's comment could be sending you or others, and consider the impact it would have. How is your hairstyle relevant to your presentation or job performance? Why does your colleague believe it's acceptable to touch your hair or inquire about touching it? Do they pose these questions to all colleagues, or are they specifically targeting you or others with similar hairstyles? As you reflect, consider why your coworker's actions might cause discomfort for you or others. Picture a scenario where such behavior is widespread. In such a situation, you could feel emotionally drained, socially isolated, and like you don't belong, affecting both your work performance and your sense of belonging in the workplace. So how can we initiate efforts to tackle microaggressions in the workplace, aiming to foster a diverse, fair, and inclusive organizational culture where employees genuinely feel a sense of belonging? The first step in addressing microaggressions is recognizing when a microaggression occurs. The second is to acknowledge what message the microaggression might be sending. Microaggressions are often subtle manifestations of bias or unconscious bias that manifest in our language, behavior, and workplace environments. Employees who encounter microaggressions often find themselves compelled to request respectful treatment in the workplace. This necessity arises because those responsible for microaggressions are frequently unaware of the hurtful impact of their behavior or indifferent. At some point in time, you may have heard one of these statements in the workplace. "You are so articulate." "You sounded white over the phone." "Wow, you are a credit to your race." The implicit message being conveyed here is that people of color are either perceived as less intelligent compared to their white counterparts, or conversely, they are considered exceptionally intelligent within the context of their race. A similar example is when someone says to a woman, "Wow, how did you as a woman become so proficient in math?" This statement conveys shock or disbelief around her presumed competencies. It is problematic because it implies surprise or disbelief that a woman can excel in a field traditionally associated with men, reinforcing gender stereotypes. These statements communicate the belief that it is unusual for a person to fit outside our stereotypical assumptions of them. This may happen in committees when members comment on fit or make assumptions about a person's character, temperament, or desire to join your unit based on their identity. Managing microaggressions around identity in the workplace can be a challenging task. You might be thinking, why don't we simply steer clear of these topics entirely? For instance, let's avoid discussions about race and try to make things simpler for everyone. When race is not acknowledged in the workplace, it gives rise to additional issues. The statement, "I don't see color," for example, denies the significance of the racial and ethnic experiences and history of people of color. People of color are also still experiencing racism and discrimination in the workplace, even if colleagues claim that they do not acknowledge, see, or consider race. In fact, Sociologist Eduardo Bonilla Silva argues that colorblindness is used by majority groups in order to avoid discussing, addressing, or dismantling racism and discrimination altogether. In turn, the notion of colorblindness actually prevents people of color from being treated equitably. We need to embrace diversity and differences in the workplace without bias or judgment. Often workplaces are sites of social interaction that reflect racial and cultural stereotypes that are rooted in unconscious bias. While most people don't intentionally stereotype or discriminate against groups of people, their brains make judgments based on patterns, experiences, and cultural stereotypes, which in turn can affect their behavior toward others and have lasting consequences in the workplace. Unlearning unconscious bias is ongoing and critical DEIB work.